Time now, 7:42, a health alert, an update on the measles cases here in South Carolina. And we have learned another case has been reported, this time in Sumter. State health leaders say possible exposures happened at the Mariachi's Mexican restaurant on Broad Street on January 23rd between the times of 5:30 to 8:30 in the evening. Another was at the Food Lion near Shaw Air Force Base on Saturday, January 24th, between 11 in the morning and 2 in the afternoon. And finally, the Walmart neighborhood store on Pinewood Road, January 25th, between 9 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon.
I feel as if each and every parent has their child immunized and themselves, this could all be, avoided. But instead, they'd rather not take the time out of their busy day to have their children immunized.
Well, I was in there earlier today, and I had no knowledge of the incident with the measles, and I have a 4-year-old daughter, so it really does bother me. If they allow people to walk around without immunization, then they should make it noticed when somebody goes in.
My children are vaccinated, and I've got the vaccine, so I'm not necessarily worried for us, but it's also scary because it's an epidemic, so it could become a pandemic. That's scary.
No other details on the measles case in Sumter has been released. Well, flu activity has ticked back up slightly in the U.S. thanks to a very small increase in infections caused by influenza B. Virus is distinct from the new subclade K strain that's been the biggest player this flu season so far. Ivan Rodriguez discusses this second peak of infections and what people should know.
If you thought flu season was over, think again.
We're actually seeing activity come back.
Dr. Caitlin Rivers with Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health says the country is seeing an increase in cases of flu B, primarily among children aged 5 through 17.
What we often see is that kids are the first to be affected by new trends, and then older age groups really start to see the effects. Flu B often becomes more common in the spring, so there's some of that going on, but I don't think it really explains the full rebound.
Rivers, who also writes about infectious disease trends in her Force of Infection Substack, says this pattern is similar to what the U.S. saw last year when flu climbed to a second peak in late February after initially falling. The recent winter storm across the country might also play a role.
I am hopeful, but not certain, that the severe winter weather that a lot of the country experienced over the last week will interrupt that expansion into other age groups, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Influenza B strains are a whole different family of viruses. Even if you've had the flu once this season, it's possible to get it again if you catch a different strain. The good news is this year's flu vaccine protects against 2 A strains and 1 B strain. So the shots should offer some protection against severe illness and hospitalization.
A majority of the deaths that we see from influenza are in older adults. So extra important if you are, say, over the age of 65, that you get your flu vaccine and that you're careful during flu season to protect yourself.
I'm Ivan Rodriguez reporting.
And turning now to your headlines from across the nation, Kentucky Senator Mitch McConnell checked himself into a hospital to be evaluated Monday night after experiencing flu-like symptoms over the weekend. In a statement, his spokesperson says former GOP leader checked himself in the hospital out of an abundance of caution. His office says the senator has a positive prognosis and looks forward to returning to Senate business. And Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk, was back in a Utah state court yesterday. The defense team of the 22-year-old Robinson wants the prosecutor's office removed from the case as they allege a conflict of interest. That's because the prosecutor's 18-year-old child was in the crowd at Utah Valley University when Kirk was shot. The county's attorney office denies the claim, saying the adult child did not see the shooting or anyone with a gun. Well, after months of back and forth, that former President Bill Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton will testify on camera later this month in a House investigation into the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, the Clemsons faced contempt of Congress charges had they refused. Justice correspondent Scott McFarlane has more from Washington.
More than 6 years after he died by suicide, the vortex surrounding sex offender Jeffrey Epstein is still growing. Bill and Hillary Clinton have agreed to sit for closed-door depositions this month with the House Oversight Committee to talk about their relationship with Epstein.
We're hopeful that they'll come in. We can ask questions I think every American and every curious reporter would have, and then we'll move on.
The former president, seen in several photos in the Epstein case files, has acknowledged flying on Epstein's jet several times, but denies knowledge of his crimes. Bill Gates is accused of affairs in the files. He denies wrongdoing, but his ex-wife today said the release dredges up painful memories.
For me, it's just sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage.
Meanwhile, it's the Trump administration facing new questions.
There's one very big piece of the Department of Justice that's missing here, and it's that key word, justice.
Survivors say the Department of Justice failed to redact their personal information, identities, and photos. The brother and sister-in-law of the late Epstein survivor, Virginia Giuffre, spoke to CBS Mornings.
They didn't actively want their names being released, and they're actively being released by our DOJ, and that creates a huge safety risk for survivors out there.
The Department of Justice has said it is working around the clock with attorneys to check those redactions and to check those files. Scott McFarlane, CBS News, Washington.
Well, another top story, the ex-husband of former First Lady Jill Biden accused of killing his current wife. Police in Delaware say they found the body of 64-year-old Linda Stevenson inside a home in December. A grand jury indicted 77-year-old William Stevenson of murder. Tuesday, he appeared in court, and a judge ordered him to be held on $500,000 bond. All right, my friends, it is almost game time. You are taking a live look at Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, and you can see the stage is set. Now, this is the site for Super Bowl 60 on Sunday, and as the players and coaches on the Seahawks and Patriots are prepping for the game, officials are preparing to make this year's Super Bowl the most secure sporting event in history. Bay Area law enforcement officials gave insight into their efforts to keep the Super Bowl safe for visitors and residents. Brad Hamilton reports.
Super Bowl week in full swing, the pros in safety gathered inside the Moscone Center to lay out their layered approach to security for the game and surrounding events. The headline, the NFL made it clear that federal agents would not be carrying out immigration enforcement operations around the Super Bowl or related activities.
There's no planned ICE enforcement activities. We are confident of that. There is not ICE deployed with us at this Super Bowl, and I don't believe there has been in the last several.
The Department of Homeland Security did want the public to know that they will see an increased federal law enforcement presence who will work with local authorities to provide security throughout the entire week.
Our collective security planning and preparation has been deliberate and layered, focused on countering a wide array of threats. We've shared intelligence, ensured the introduction of key countermeasures, and shored up our emergency response capabilities while remaining flexible and adaptable.
One of those layers comes from above. On Monday, our cameras caught a helicopter crisscrossing San Francisco. We tracked its path on FlightAware. The Department of Energy said its nuclear emergency support team is measuring background radiation levels as part of a standard safety survey in the days before the game. Former FBI Special Agent Jeff Harp explained why, in particular, Levi's Stadium will remain a focus for these sweeps.
They look for radioactive material that may be present because some of the threats is the dispersion of radioactive material over a stadium where people are sitting, where you've got, 60 to 80,000 fans sitting at one place, and there could be a dispersion of a radioactive device.
Harp says the one thing that'll help ease some of the more intense security protocols, President Trump is not expected to attend this year. The bottom line, authorities say their focus is on security. Santa Clara Police Chief Corey Morgan says their plan, which took 18 months to prep, is ready for the 60th edition of the big game.
Our goal is simple: for fans, families, and residents to enjoy a safe and memorable Super Bowl experience.
Other big news to report is that there are no known security threats at this time, but as law enforcement said time and again, if you see something, say something.
And take a look at this. A zoo in Des Moines, Iowa is getting into the fun of the big game by having some of its residents predict the winner. Yesterday, Iowa's Blank Park Zoo turned to its African lions for a big game prediction. Deuce and Zarina were given a choice between barrels marked for the Seahawks and the Patriots. Deuce, the male lion, approached first but deferred. Zarina, the zoo's lioness, then stepped in and made her pick. Seattle. The zoo says its animal predictions have been right nearly 80% of the time. That's great. Now the Seahawks and Patriots face off this Sunday in Santa Clara, California. All right, my friends, stay with us. We have much more News 19 this morning on the other side of this quick break. And we're also going to be bringing you more information about a search that's going on right now for a missing woman. Stay with us.